Using primary sources in the history classroom. Unit 3, Source Reliability. In using primary sources, teachers want students to base their understanding of the past on evidence. But how dependable is this evidence? To answer this question, students need to make judgments about a source's reliability. This is the challenge we'll be exploring in this presentation. This lithograph is the source for this unit's warm-up activity. It depicts a dramatic moment in European history. What do students need to do to make sense of this source and to use it to better understand the past? Students need several skills if they're to use primary sources effectively. Here are the 5 we explore in this entire course. For this presentation, we'll work with the third one, the one you see underlined. The third task on that list asks us to decide how reliable our sources are as evidence. For example, let's consider this painting of Martin Luther burning the papal bull in 1520. The facts here about the painting should help you decide how reliable it is. So how reliable is this source? In other words, how dependable is it as evidence for one particular moment in history? The information about its date should make it clear that this source from 1830 cannot be reliable as evidence of what took place that day in 1520. The painting may be based on reliable sources about what happened, but it is not itself really even a primary source about that event. Here's a document that definitely is a primary source, even though it is also distant in time from the event it describes. Thomas Eisner wrote this description in 2004. It is his account of a speech he heard Martin Luther King give in 1961. Eisner wrote this many years after the event. However, he was a witness to that event. This means his comments are reliable to some degree. While memories are not always accurate, still they are the memories of someone who was there. So the source is a reliable report of what Eisner remembers about that event. Keep in mind that a source can be reliable without being believable or even accurate. This is an important distinction. Eisner may have forgotten much, and his account may not be perfectly accurate, but it is reliable as evidence of the speech's impact on him, and by inference, its impact on others. What makes a source reliable depends on the question the historian asks of it. Eisner's account is reliable evidence to help answer certain kinds of questions, but not others. Here are some other reliability issues to keep in mind. Skim through these issues. In the next few slides, we'll look at points 1a, b, and c in relation to this source by Thomas Eisner. Points 1a and b have to do with what qualifies the author to comment on an event. Eisner seems qualified by virtue of the fact that he was an eyewitness. He did hear King give this speech. As to point 1c, Eisner does express strong emotions. This might make the source seem less reliable. Strong emotion could have led Eisner to exaggerate how convincing King's speech was. But if our question is about the speech's impact, Eisner's emotional response is evidence of what that impact was. As to the remaining points on this list, let's look at 2 other primary sources. These 2 sources are both about frontier settlers. They'll help us consider points 2 and 3 at the bottom of our list here on the right. Both sources are about settlers going west to Oregon in the mid-1800s. On the left is one woman's account. On the right is a St. Louis newspaper editorial. Take some time to read these through. We'll work with these sources in the next few slides. One source is a specific account by one woman, Elizabeth Wood. The other is a broad description of settlers in general. The two sources are not entirely consistent with each other. Wood's account is very positive. The newspaper editorial is not positive at all. But does this mean the two sources are not reliable, or that one is less reliable than the other? Both sources may be reliable, but in very different ways. Again, it depends on the question you're asking. If you want to know about the specific experience of a settler heading west, Wood's diary is a reliable source. If you want to know how settlers in general were perceived, the newspaper account is reliable evidence of one point of view about this. Again, this shows that source reliability always depends somewhat on the kind of problem or question the historian is posing. To sum up, determining source reliability involves a number of different factors. This list focuses attention on the author or creator of the source, on the nature of the source, and on its relationship to other sources. Many other factors could also affect source reliability, so use this list flexibly. Above all, encourage students to keep a guiding question in mind when assessing a source's reliability. Determining reliability, then, is another important skill students need to interpret primary source documents.